a man passed away. He was 101 years old. 101. His name was Avraham Jacobowitz. He called himself Eddie Jaku. A little easier than Abraham Jacobowitz was Eddie Jaku. He published his first book and last book at the age of 100, 1 year ago, after his 100th birthday. That's not bad. The only one who did better than him was Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, who wrote his book at the age of 120. But Eddie Jaku wrote his book at the age of 100. You know what the title is? The Happiest Man on Earth. So when you see the title and you see the picture of him on the front page, on the jacket of the book, an elderly, handsome, kind man, wonderful face, aglow, you think he lived in Sydney. He passed away in Sydney in Australia. And you think, he was living in Sydney all his life, in the Gubai, for those of you who know Sydney, in the Gubai, beautiful Gubai neighborhood and region, near the water, relaxed, serene, tranquil, and he could walk around at the age of 100 and say, I am the happiest man on earth. When you open up the book, you see that he was born in 1920 in Leipzig, Germany. As a teenager, his parents sent him away to boarding school, and he learned engineering. November 9th, 1938, he came home to Leipzig to surprise his parents for their wedding anniversary on November 9th. Anybody knows what happened November 9th, 1938? What? What exactly? The Holocaust went on for many years. Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass. He came home, his parents weren't there, they went into hiding. 5 a.m., 10 Nazis came into his house. There was only the dog, Lulu, was there. They beat him mercilessly. Lulu tried to protect him, they killed Lulu, and they beat this boy, Avraham Jacobowitz, to the point that one of them, with his dagger, started to engrave a swastika on his chest, in blood, of course. They sent him to Buchenwald. He got out of there. He escaped to Belgium. He was arrested in Belgium, and he was sent to Auschwitz. From the platform of the train, he stole a hammer and screwdriver. And the 9-hour journey back east to France, Germany, and Auschwitz, he was busy with his hammer and screwdriver. And after 9 hours, he managed to create a crevice, and he crept under the train. And he ran. He never made it to Auschwitz. He made it back to Belgium, France. He was arrested again. And this time sent with his whole family to Auschwitz in 1943. His parents were killed, sent to the gas chambers. He was sent to work because he was an engineer, so they could use his skill for one of their German factories. He ran away from the death camp of Auschwitz. Very few people did it successfully. But in the woods, a Polish farmer shot him in his leg. And he realized there's no way he's going to be able to survive. So he went back to Auschwitz, and the Nazis never detected that he ran away. So now he went back to Auschwitz, and then he was put on the death march at the end of the war. When the Soviets were coming closer, they took the Jewish prisoners on a death march. Most of them did not survive. He survived the death march. They put him into another factory. He was in charge of 200 machines, and they had a sign that they put on his head, hanging from his neck, if any of the machines break, hang me. So he made 200 whistles for the Jewish employees, that if something is wrong with the machine, they should whistle, so they're able to run in and deal with it before he gets hung. That's where he met his sister, Henny, who was also alive in that factory, but then he was sent on another death march. Most people couldn't survive these death marches. You marched for days and nights without food, without water, and if you stopped, you were shot. These are people who were emaciated, they haven't eaten. They were sick, they were diseased, they were like skeletons, if you've seen pictures or documentaries. He ran away from the death march. He's a resourceful fellow. He ran away from the death march into a ditch in the forest, so the bullets missed him, and he stayed in a ditch for 6 months, surviving on snails. 6 months. He was so emaciated he couldn't walk. He crawled from the ditch to a highway, and an American soldier spotted him and rescued him. They took him to a hospital. This was June 1945, the war was now over. They took him to a hospital. They told him that most likely he's going to die. He was so malnourished, he was so sick, he was so diseased. He hasn't eaten and he had typhus. So the nurse told him, most likely he won't be able to make it. But the man survived. He survived. And what did he do? A few weeks later, he got himself a ticket and he went back to Belgium, because that's where his family fled to from Germany. And he thought maybe he'll find somebody. He found nobody, but he found a Jewish girl by the name of Flora. And a few weeks later, they were married. In the summer of 1945, they were married. He said, but I was a miserable man. I was angry. I was anxious. I was sad. I was broken. I lost everything. He lost both of his parents and most members of his family, besides a sister, Henny, who survived. He and his wife moved to Australia, to Sydney, where many survivors moved to. And then he says in 1950, his first son was born, Michael. And he said, as my son was born, and I looked my son in his eyes, I looked into the eyes of my little new angel. In his words, he gave a speech, I heard him say, he said, my joy has returned to me in abundance. And at that moment, I made a decision. And the decision is, I'm going to live a happy life. I'm going to smile. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to be considerate. And I'm going to enjoy every day of my life. He says, today, I'm 100 years old. This is last year, 2020. I'm 100 years old. I am the happiest man on earth. I have family. I have children. I have grandchildren. I have great-grandchildren. I have the gift of friendship. I have the gift of community. And I have the gift of life. You read this person's book. He gave a TED Talk 2 years ago. 6,000 people gave him a standing ovation. And you understand the power of the human spirit. You're in awe. Like, what is this guy on that I'm not on? And the answer is, he was just drunk on the gift of life. And he turns to the 6,000 people in the room at his TED Talk. And he says, you know, young people today don't know how to stop and breathe. They don't know how to enjoy friendship. They don't know how to celebrate life. We are so stressed. He says, for me, one flower in a garden is a whole garden, and one friend is a whole world. Then he says, I'll never forgive or forget the Germans. I will never return to German soil. And every day I miss my mother, and I would give up all my money to be able to hug my mother once more. She was gassed in 1943. And then he says, my father told me as a teenager, Avraham, Eddie, life is hard. But if you put the work in, you will be grateful one day. And remember, to be a giver is much more enjoyable than to be a taker at the end of the day. And he looks up to heaven at the age of 99, and he says, today I turn to my Father in heaven and I say, Daddy, I am grateful. There were very few dry eyes in the audience. He looked at everybody and he said, tomorrow will come, but learn how to enjoy today. And at that moment, I understood what it means that our life is a factory. It's not a place where you come in and everything is beautiful and perfect. I have my skeletons, and probably some of you have yours. I have my stress, and probably some of you have yours. I have my internal challenges, and some of you have yours. This is not a world we come into for perfection. But it's also not a world that's made to break people. This is a world in which the human soul, the human spirit has that power to be a partner with God, who created the world and allowed there to be darkness and created the light. And we are the partners who take every moment of confusion and use it as a springboard for awareness. We take our anxiety and we see it as an alarm clock, waking us up to who we are. Next time you're feeling anxiety, don't get upset at your anxiety. Do you get upset at your alarm clock in the morning? I do. But it's not very logical, right? Your alarm clock is just trying to wake you up to reality. The sun has risen. The sun has risen. Yes, you get to go to future care in 45 minutes. Don't all laugh at the same time. But your alarm clock is not a bad guy. Your alarm clock is just trying to wake you up to reality, you know? It's time to wake up. Your anxiety is an alarm clock. It's an alarm clock. Don't get upset at it. And don't just press snooze. It's a Jewish thing to do. Snooze. We numb our anxiety. Some of us through binging. That's why I'm as skinny as I look. Some of us through other interesting things. But everybody has distractions through which I press snooze, so I silence the alarm clock. But snooze does not silence the alarm clock. So some people break the alarm clock. I don't know if you ever had a brother who did that in yeshiva, but probably. Ask him. We break it. You don't break your anxiety, you don't snooze it. You listen to it. It's telling you something. It's teaching you about yourself. It's telling me what I have to work on. It's telling you what you have to work on. It's not your enemy. It's your friend. It's a friend that's telling you the truth. You know, there are friends who just say, hi. Present company excluded. But then there are friends who say hi, but then they say, I want to share with you the truth. Those are real friends. Your anxiety is your friend. And you're telling me with such friends, who needs enemies, right? But that's the truth. My anxiety is here to help me become the person I'm supposed to become. It's here to wake me up to my insecurities, my fears, my pains, my traumas, my unresolved stuff. It's an opportunity to transform it into light. So what is our world? Our world is not a place of initial light or darkness. Our world is vayi erev, vayi voiker, night followed by day, where we take every experience of darkness, whatever it may look like, and we say, how am I going to become more empowered through this? Many of you sitting in this room belong to a nation known as the Jewish people, right? I happen also to be Jewish. My mother is Jewish. My father is Jewish. What's the name? But this really applies to everybody, all humanity. It's one of the great stories in the Hebrew Bible. What was the name of the father of the Jewish people? Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob. But Jacob didn't stick, his name didn't stick. He has a change of name and it becomes Israel, Yisrael. Interesting. His name doesn't stick. There's a transformation from Jacob to Israel. That's why Israel is called Israel. Jewish people are called Israel, Eretz Yisrael, Torah Yisrael, Am Yisrael. Yisrael in English is Israel. When did he get that name change? So if you remember the story, it was one night and he was battling a strange adversary. And the strange adversary wanted to kill him, but he couldn't. So he maimed him and he dislocated his sciatic nerve, and now Jacob was limping. And now Jacob turns to him and is holding on to him, and the man says, send me away, it's dawn, it's morning, I gotta go. And what does Jacob tell him? Lo ashalecha chakim beirachtani. I will not send you away until you don't bless me. What a strange response. Imagine somebody attacks you in a dark alley, and they're trying to kill you all night, and finally in the morning they're leaving. You say, wait, I need a bracha, I need a blessing. Really? Call 911, punch them in the nose, run away. If you're a black belt, even better. You can ask them for blessings? What's the meaning of this? And you know what the man says? Instead of blessing you, I'll change your name. Your name shouldn't be Jacob, your name should be Israel, Yisrael. With this response, Jacob was teaching his children and all of humanity forever one of the profoundest lessons in life. And that is, when I'm facing adversity of any kind, it's not just enough for me to say, get me out of this place. If that's the purpose, get me out of this place. Why did God put me into that position initially? There's something much deeper. I have to be able to look at my adversary, whatever he or she looks like, and say, I will not let you go until I do not come out from this encounter more blessed. The secret of the Jewish people, the secret of Eddie Jaku, the secret of all of us from time immemorial until this very day is that when we face adversity, whatever it looks like, my response is not, OMG, oh my Google, oh my God, get me out of this. Then, who needed it in the first place? Why would a good God put me here? My response is, I was put into this difficult relationship in order to come out more blessed, more wise, more deep, more vulnerable, more real, more authentic, more kind, more refined, more divine, more emesdik, more honest. Yes, if my personal trainer is asking me to bench press 295, why is that so funny? It happened, and I got hurt, so I quit. But that's a separate subject. There's also an alarm clock. You're lifting weights, and what happens? You're tearing the tissue of the muscle. It hurts, but that's how the muscle rebuilds itself and becomes more powerful. The seed is planted in the earth, it decomposes, but only after it decomposes can it morph into a tree. So Jacob says, I met you not just to get out of you, but to come out of you more blessed, to transform the darkness into light, to transform my anxiety into a blessing, to realize that every trauma you're dealing with in the past and in the present was not here to break you, even though it feels that way. It was not here to paralyze you. It was not here to put you into a depression. It was not here to make you freak out and make you miserable, even though it feels that way. You know what it was really made for? It was made to ultimately allow you to become the person you're supposed to become, to be able to give the world the light that only you can give the world through your unique personality, unique contribution, unique energy. It doesn't always feel that way. But think about anybody who really changed you in a real way. Anybody who ever looked you in the eyes and told you something that touched you in the deepest way, and it will usually be somebody who went through crisis. Because it's only those people, all of you who ever had a conversation with such a person know exactly what I'm talking about. Those person who change people's lives because they can empathize, because they were there, because they know what the darkness looks like. They have smelled it, they have tasted it, they have touched it. They know what it means to allow night to become day. That's the secret of the cycle of Judaism. Why our days don't begin with sunrise. They begin after sunset, and then they develop into sunrise. Sunset and sunrise merge. The sun sets, but the sun setting is just a preparation. It's not the end. By us, sunset is not the end of the day, it's the beginning. My sun sets, and that becomes the catalyst for a new sunrise, for a new awareness, for new sun, for new shine, for new daylight.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.